BeTheTalk, episode 170, featuring Don Rheem. Welcome to BeTheTalk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Don Rheem. Don, are you ready to talk?
Oh, I certainly am.
Don Rheem is CEO of E3 Solutions, a provider of employee workplace metrics which allows organizations to build engaged, high-performance cultures. He is the author of Thrive by Design, the neuroscience that drives high-performance cultures, published by Forbes Books. A former science advisor to both Congress and the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Don Rheem shares a grounded and empirically validated methodology to get employees more engaged and better positioned for success targeted at the bottom line. Don Rheem, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Your TEDx BYU talk is called How Can Work Save Our Relationships? And I love your talk, Don, because it's all about emotional safety at work. We all know that statistic about disengagement and even active disengagement in the workplace. And you really hone in on that and talk about the power of what happens when people feel safe and validated in work, as well as the alternative. And many of us can unfortunately relate to that. So please, Don, take us behind the talk.
Sure. So in the last 30 years, our ability to connect with each other technologically has just exploded exponentially. Smartphones, the internet. I mean, I grew up in the era of long distance rates. You couldn't even call someone in the next county without paying extra money.
I remember those.
Our ability to connect technologically has just absolutely exploded. But at the same time, we've had this expansion of the ability to connect. There is a growing, pervasive pandemic of loneliness spreading across America. The number of Americans who report being pervasively alone and isolated has doubled in this time, from 20% of the American population to now 40%. One former U.S. Surgeon General refers to this growing pandemic of isolation as the most dangerous public health threat facing America today. Now, so what I simply am doing, am taking this fact along with what we now know is the most likely place people are to be able to find and establish connections, and it turns out it's at work. And not only is this good for the people, but it actually turns out to be incredibly powerful for workplace cultures, where employees also become more engaged when they're in a relational culture than they are when they're in a transactional culture. So I just try to bring this to the forefront. It's what I wrote about in my book, Thrive by Design. And I'm going around the country and talking to our clients and CEOs, trying to spread this new message.
What was that statistic that you mentioned? 1 out of 40 people are completely isolated. Can you go back into that a little bit? Because I missed part of it and it sounded just so important, Don.
Sure. So there was a study done in the 1980s, asking Americans a whole host of questions about our society and social conditions. One of the questions was, I feel pervasively alone and isolated in my life. And back in the 80s, it was 20% of the American population, 2 out of 10.
Just in the 80s. Wow.
Yes,
wow.
Exactly. And since then, it's doubled. It's now 40%. 4 out of 10 Americans feel pervasively isolated in their life. Now, some people might say, well, what, big deal. They need to, grow up. This is what is behind these other startling statistics. For example, teenage suicide is skyrocketing. Violence is getting higher. Mental health issues. The brain, and this is the other thing I talk about in the talk, as you know, we are hardwired as herd animals. We're social animals. We're relational animals. We need to have connections, safe and secure connections, in order to thrive and stay healthy. But we're losing that in the American culture. And I'm simply trying to tell CEOs, you have this incredible opportunity not only to have a high-performance culture that's more productive and profitable, but at the same time, you're actually addressing one of the most severe public health threats facing America today.
What would you say, Don, to the CEO who hears all of this and agrees with all of this, but says, "Hey, Don, I mean, we've got to, before we have high performance, we have to get back to performance. We have to maintain, survival before we do all of these other nice sounding things." I mean, just a real matter of fact thing. What do you tell to that person?
Well, many CEOs, business leaders are starting to realize something, and that is I used to say, a year ago, I was saying we're on the cliff edge of the most severe labor shortage we've ever faced in our economy. Now I'm explaining we've fallen off the cliff. We are in free fall. In May, the U.S. economy added another 220,000 jobs to our economy. The unemployment rate has dropped to 3.8%. It hasn't been that low in 49 years. Mm-hmm. We are in a period of a talent shortfall and crisis. And in what does this mean for companies? Well, one of the things is you can't afford to lose the good people you have because you have a toxic culture or toxic managers within the culture. Mm-hmm. So what I would say to them is you need to be focused on your culture. A culture trumps strategy every single minute of every day. And what are you doing to hold on to your A and B players? And we're not in survival mode anymore. At least we shouldn't be. We are in the 93rd month of continuous economic growth in our country. We've never had a period of economic growth this long in our economic history.
Don, I'm trying to do the math on that. 93. What is that? 8 years? 7 years?
Yeah, you'd have to do.
I'm just trying to slow this down so that Talk Universe, we can really catch up to what you're saying here. That is powerful stuff. And
it's almost 8 years. It's just under 8 years. It's been since the end of the so-called Great Recession. Now, some of those, what it means is every month the economy is stronger than the month before. And now some of those months it's been very, very small percentage, but it's getting bigger and bigger. Now, the other thing, what this means, Nathan, is right behind that is I think 91 months of continuous job growth in the American economy. Every month there are more people working than there were the month before. And what this growing economy has done is it's soaked up almost all of the available, I think at this point, virtually all of the easily available labor. The U.S. Department of Labor says there are 6.9 million unfilled jobs in America today. And I know we have this big debate on immigration right now in the United States, but I'll tell you, in as little as 5 years, we're going to be paying people to come here. This is going to be the most severe drag on the American economy that we face.
That really puts it in perspective.
Yeah,
it really does. Don, I love in your talk, and we're here to go really behind your talk. You talk about the power, the synergistic power of having a friend at work, and you start talking about some stuff that I'd never heard before, but I'd felt it before. And it's like when I talk with a great guest like you on BeTheTalk, I feel 150% more productive when I have a great virtual assistant that helps me along, and I don't have to, retrain, and they know what to do. I feel like 10 times more productive. Can you go into that part of the talk? Because I mean, we talk about some of the negative things. We talk about the shortfall. I think that the way that you've reframed it is absolutely huge in light of some of the interviews that I've done on immigration and other things like that. It's a great topper for those things. But can you talk about the part where you talk about the psychological and the actual productivity boost that happen when you have really great synergy at work?
Sure. And I appreciate the question. When you look at the leadership field overall, there's more than 1,000 books in leadership in print today. Very few of them are based on science. So what we do differently in our practice at E3 Solutions is we look at what neuroscience tells us about what drives behavior. And one of the fascinating new developments is this understanding of how the brain treats reliable others. So as I explained in chapter 2 of the book, so let's say, Nathan, I've been working with you for about 6 months, and I've come to realize that you are consistent, you're predictable, you're caring, you support me, you have my back. Phrases or terms we would now use, I would call you cognitively trustworthy and reliable. Well, what social neuroscientists have now been able to show us is that when my brain realizes that you're a, quote, reliable social resource for me, that my brain actually feels its capacity to do things expands because I have your capacity as well. So I come to work with you now after 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And instead of having, let's say, 100 units of metabolic energy that I bring to work, because of you, I come to work with 150. Now, if I'm that same person to you, you're at 150. So it literally becomes a case of 1 + 1 = 3. This is the synergy of reliable social resources. But even, I think, more compelling is that we now know that my brain treats you as this resource interchangeably with physical resources like glucose and oxygen and water. That's how vital it is to us and to me.
All right. So what CEO doesn't want to pay for 2 employees that get along real well and get the third one free?
Well, exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Why we know. Yeah. And we measure engagement. We have a proprietary tool that measures engagement in organizations. And what we know is when engagement goes up, so does productivity. And this is why. And this is really important because even though we're at full employment today in the United States, productivity per employee has dropped. So this is, if we want to increase productivity, you don't do it through perks and pay for performance, which are bribe systems. You do it by creating workplace cultures where people thrive when they get to work. Now, here's the flip side of the coin that I just described working with you for 6 months. I'm at 150, you're at 150. I come to work on Monday morning and you're not there anymore. You've been moved to a different facility. And so the question is, do I go back to my original 100 units of metabolic capacity? No. I might now be dropped to 65 or 70 because you're not there anymore. And quite literally, Nathan, the work that I was able to do with you on Friday when you were there, now on Monday feels impossible to get done. So this is a huge driver of performance and productivity in people. But we don't pursue it just because we want CEOs to have more productive employees. We want them to have healthier workplace cultures. And here's what drives what we do. We know that if we can make the workplace healthier for workers, they go home and they're better parents and they're better partners. Our goal really is to create healthier families, but we're going to do it by creating healthier workplaces. And the beauty of it is, as the workplace becomes healthier, it becomes more profitable and productive.
I'm just thinking about family members of mine who work in healthcare as you are sharing that example, Don. And they have assistants, they have people working the desk, and sometimes those people move on and they have to retrain people. And it just like you've said, when they have to move on and retrain other people, it becomes almost an impossible load for weeks at a time.
Yes,
just powerful. Do you do much work in healthcare? In your company?
We do. We've worked with a chain of 86 acute care hospitals across the United States. And it's a big issue there. And they brought us in to talk, we've been to teaching hospitals to talk to docs and managers. And the reason one of the reasons hospitals are so interested in this is because they know that the quality of the employee performance, employee engagement translates into patient satisfaction. And when you have an organization with engaged employees, patient satisfaction rates go up, and so do recovery rates. Mm-hmm. People are healthier when they're in a positive environment. And in the workplace, the data shows that if an employee works overtime in a positive workplace, they'll live longer, up to 11 years longer in a positive workplace environment as opposed to a toxic one.
We've been enjoying this talk with Don Rheem, who gave an amazing TEDx BYU talk. It's called How Can Work Save Our Relationships? And I think we're finding that out very quickly talking with Don. And in a moment, we'll be back with Don Rheem for the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with Don Rheem. It is time for the Blitz Round. This is what I'm going to ask you, Don, a series of either-or questions related to the actual preparation and performance of your recent TEDx talk. Are you ready, Don?
I'm ready.
First question, were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I was selected to speak based on the topic that I covered.
Are you generally a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
That is a good question. I am mostly an improviser, and this is why the talk was so. I can talk for 4 hours without notes, but when I was restricted to 14 minutes, it was brutal.
So did you improvise, or did you have a little bit more of a game plan than you normally would have spelled out, or how did you prepare for this?
It was memorized.
Okay.
The talk itself was memorized. I couldn't afford to improvise because I would have blown through the time restrictions, which I saw other speakers at my event do. It's challenging.
Oh yeah. And Talk Universe, you don't want to be that speaker that blows through and basically takes time off of the plate from the organizer and all the other speakers. So good awareness there, Don.
You're so right. Yeah.
So you're speaking all the time all over the world, Don. For this talk, did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
No, I wasn't. I was a little nervous when I was introduced because the interviewer described me as being like Batman. And when I think it was because of my voice or something. And when I came out on the stage, there was a wolf whistle, and that just wasn't the usual response that I guess. I got, God, how am I going to deal with this?
A wolf whistle or a cat call, or what's the difference?
No cat calls, but literally a wolf whistle. So, and I was a little nervous about that. But I'll tell you, Nathan, it really helps to be passionate about your topic. Mm-hmm. And the passion and the commitment, I think, helps overcome the nerves.
Okay. Well, you just answered my next question. So in addition to passion, what's another tip, technique, or tool that helped you?
It was the understanding that someone told me right beforehand that editing would be done, that it wasn't literally live to tape. And I've got to tell you that saved the day, because if you were in my talk, it wasn't nearly as seamless as what it looks like when you watch it on the YouTube channel.
Oh, how so?
Well, there were I had some moments where I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do next, and I had, for example, one moment I said, "Next slide, please," so I could see what the next slide was. So it wasn't all that pretty in live, but thanks to editing and great editors, and it looks much better, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, and I'm sure some of your broadcasting experience and a little bit of trade awareness and expertise really came into play there, and that's a great thing. I'm bringing this out just because Talk Universe, it's really good to know this, because it's not the end of the world if when you have that brain freeze. Just take a deep breath, take a sip of water, and go right back in once you regather everything. Don, anything to say about that?
Yes. So the key is, if you're in the middle of a sentence, for example, and you realize you don't really know where it's going to end, just stop. Don't try to finish it with babble, but then pause to give the editor some free space to pick it up again, and start at the beginning. So pause and go back a sentence or two, and then just start over again. And that's what allows editing and broadcasting to work so well.
Yeah. And that takes some practice to actually be able to do that, even in practice, much less in the moment. However, it works, and it really is the key. Now that with this show, pausing, putting some space in there, that allows production teams the bandwidth they need to make something pretty out of what we give them sometimes.
There you
All
go.
right. Don, this is the cut for time question for you. What's the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
It was the science around adult attachment, the science around what draws us together as a species. We are hardwired at birth to have safe and secure connections with others. And I just wanted to talk about that science a little bit more, but it had to go.
Well, and that's why we have BeTheTalk, because I know there's a lot of gold on the chopping room floor on these talks.
There is. Yep.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, it's a performance. So, last question. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during your talk or right before you went on stage, besides the wolf whistle that you already mentioned?
Well, I think, I don't know if it's bizarre, but it was incredibly helpful. There was a moment where I just kind of blanked. And I paused and I looked down and I was gathering my thoughts, and it was the audience. And someone said something to the effect of, "You've got this, Don." And then other people started clapping. And it was that sense of, they're not out there thinking, "Oh my gosh, he's lost himself. This is terrible." They were out there supporting me and cheering me on. And I just love that part of what a live audience can do for a speaker. It really, I think, makes a big difference and is one of the reasons why the TED model, I think, is so successful.
We've been enjoying this very riveting conversation with Don Rheem. His talk is called How Can Work Save Our Relationships? If you want to watch that talk and you don't care to type it all into YouTube, you can go to our show notes page instead at BeTheTalk.com. We will have a link for you right there. One click gets it all done. And you can connect with Don at his website. It is donrheem.com. Don Rheem is spelled RHEEM.com. And we'll be back with Don Rheem in just a moment for the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Don Rheem. It's time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Final word of advice. Go with your passion, narrow it down, use others who know you and your topic to help you refine your topic. Don't do this in isolation. Bring in your support team and let them help you get through this. Write it all out, edit, refine it, but rely on others. Let them in and let them help you.
Don Rheem, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the talk today and share your wisdom with Talk Universe. Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.